Hey guys, what's happening? So we are back for more Venom War with Venom War Deadpool. Where in just these first couple of issues, Deadpool does something that he's gotten pretty good at recently, which is bringing back characters who Marvel's forgotten about. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so jumping into Venom War Deadpool, these first couple of tie-ins, they start out about as crazy as you would expect, because for starters, this is happening alongside of what we've talked about with Venomous, which so far we've more or less just blended in with the Venom War Zombiotes issues, but I really like the way this kicks off when we head over to Deadpool, because at first he's having this whole guilt trip and talking about how this is all his fault, much like what we saw Peter do back in King of Black, but in this case with Deadpool, he's just like none of this would have happened had I never found that symbiote during Secret Wars, which as we know is a direct reference to Deadpool Back in Black, which we covered on the channel like 7 years ago, something like that. And I have a link in the description for anyone who needs to go back and check it out. But at the time, Deadpool Back in Black, it gave us a story of how Deadpool got the symbiote before Peter. He found out it was alive, he discarded it, and he just let Peter walk in and do the same thing without giving him any kind of warning, only for him to eventually end up back in the symbiote later on. Hence the whole Deadpool Back in Black at the time. So yeah, I just thought it was nice that we got that reference. But in the here and now, this whole zombiote situation, it is not going well for him. He's telling civilians not to worry, everything's gonna be okay, only for them to find out seconds later that everything's not okay. And then on top of that, you have the whole situation where he's trying not to kill the zombiotes who still have living hosts in them. So yeah, in addition to the insane numbers, there's a lot of things he's trying to juggle here. And for a moment, he gets a form of a solution when he's joined by Princess, who's a symbiote clone of Carnage that was created for world domination, but is actually very nice, as well as Andy Benton, who Deadpool refers to as silent but deadly. Where in her case, like we saw in Extreme Carnage, Andy was captured by Alchemax, nearly killed by the Phage symbiote, to where soon after she was reunited with the Scream symbiote, which nearly died itself, but after Dr. Steven combined it with a sample of anti-venom and gave it back to Andy, after bonding with this new hybrid symbiote, they became Silence. So now with Andy and Princess, this gives him a bit more help in the fight, but also with Andy having anti-venom, she's able to cure the zombiotes who have living hosts. But again, there are just so many coming that it almost makes the effort seem hopeless. But when they notice a pack of zombiotes trying to get to a school bus, Deadpool's just like, okay, well, we have to save them. But then he thinks for a moment like, okay, well, why are these kids even out here at this time? And then he realizes that they were clearly on a field trip where they went to the circus. And he realizes this just before a ton of zombiote circus animals come rushing out, led by a zombiote elephant. So right here, Andy, she tells Deadpool to handle the undead elephant, because she's gonna go help the kids in the bus. And it's funny because she has this wrench she's been fighting with the whole time, so when she gets to the bus and she finds a bunch of the kids are already turned to zombiotes, for a moment she starts going on about how she hates kids, especially zombiote kids. And right here Deadpool's like, don't look, avert your eyes, my buddy's going to bash children with a wrench while I resort to animal cruelty. So of course zombiote Mufasa's not having that. But for me, these are just some of the things I was glad to see in a Venom War Deadpool tie-in. Because in the larger picture, it's not like the Deadpool tie-ins are stealing the show, but if I had to make a list of things I wanted to see, I gotta say it feels like Deadpool's going for every last one. But in the middle of this chaos, Andy, she ends up curing one of these kids as Deadpool gets his arm bitten off by zombiote Mufasa, but the kid that Andy just saved ends up getting bitten and turned again as the piece of Deadpool's arm that got bitten off gets taken by a zombiote. And this right here was like the clear sign that let Deadpool know that they're in over their heads. So as him and Princess are escaping, Deadpool calls Andy to come over his way. And when she sees him crawling in the sewer, she's like, what are you doing? So he tells her, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm escaping, because the truth is they need to regroup. So of course Andy's just like, there's people up there who need our help. So Deadpool tells her, not sure if you've been keeping score, but we weren't doing anybody favors in the helping hand department. In fact, I'm officially down one hand. We need to catch our breath. And he also lets her know that this isn't just some random retreat, but also they've come down here because he has what he would call friends in low places, as he goes on to lead them to the monster metropolis, which is home to the Legion of Monsters. And it's really just more of an underground city located in the Morlock tunnels where any monster is welcome to come and live some kind of a normal life down here. But with Deadpool retreating to the metropolis, he's not exactly welcomed here. And we can tell because as soon as they arrive, Frank calls him out when he tells Wade that he abandoned the metropolis and laid claim to another monster kingdom instead, which I believe goes back to the whole thing from the Deadpool 2016 series when he married Shikla, only to later have her leave him for Dracula, where in Dracula's case he just wanted to take control of all the monsters, who at this point preferred to have their independence. So for a long time, Deadpool was seen to have been on the wrong side of that conflict, and I don't really think it's something that most people are thinking about, but in the here and now, Frank still sees Deadpool as someone who betrayed him and his people, so he doesn't believe that Wade should be here, and he's not the only monster here who feels that way. So of course Deadpool, he doesn't pay much attention to this, and he goes on to tell him that he's here on business. And when he makes his way to Michael Morbius, Deadpool's like, "How you been?" And more importantly, "How's our mutual friend?" Who, as it turns out, just happens to be James Hudson Jr. from Earth 1610, the son of Wolverine. And I gotta tell you, it's a shame how Marvel has swept this guy under the rug for the past 6+ years, man. Cause they could have brought him back for the Krakoa era, they could have brought him back for King in Black, but no. After X-Men Blue, this dude was just MIA. And at this point, we're more or less able to piece together why he's been gone. Cause when he left, he just had his heart broken by the time displaced younger Jean Grey, and as it would seem, he just drifted and eventually ended up here, since Jimmy practically considers himself to be a monster. But the way Deadpool sees it, this is precisely the monster that they need to have a chance in this fight against the zombiotes. And while they're here, it's not too long before they get the chance to find out. Because just moments later, the zombiotes make their way to the monster metropolis, and they start infecting the monsters. So as you might imagine, for Frank, in addition to any other monsters who feel like Deadpool's already a traitor, this has now just made the situation worse. Cause to them, it's like Deadpool has just brought his enemies to their home, so it's only seen as just an insult to injury. But as Frank is telling Deadpool that this is his fault, Andy tells them that they need to fight now and point fingers later. So Deadpool tells Jimmy to bring out Poison and show these zombiotes what he's got. And as far as a little backstory for this whole Poison situation with Jimmy, this is something that's been around since Venomized issues 3 and 4, during the Poison Hive invasion, where at the time Jimmy had a symbiote bond to him, which had this purple and blue color scheme that made him look like a wild berry Pop-Tart, that I'm still mad about to this day. But this was changed later on when Jimmy was consumed by one of the poison, which at the least made a color scheme correction. But after this, when the time-displaced Jean killed the Poison Queen, this sent a shockwave to all the poisons in her hive, causing them to collapse in on themselves. But because Jimmy has a resistance to telepathy, just like his father, his poison survived this attack, making his one of the few that remained. And after the conclusion of Venomized, the continuation of this was picked up within X-Men Blue, where we saw James Hudson Jr. return, and in Cult of Carnage, where Cletus's corpse was recovered and he came back from the dead. But in Jimmy's case, later on when he came back in X-Men Blue, between issues 29, 30, and 36, it was here where we started to explore the effects that had taken place with him still having one of the poison bonded to him, which for the most part had to do with him seeing flashbacks of things that had taken place on his home world, in addition to bits and pieces of moments from Venomized. But one of the last things that was left up in the air, as far as what was going on with Jimmy, it had to do with something he told Jean, back when her and the others tried to track down Jimmy to help him out, because it was at this time when he told her that Jimmy Hudson is dead. And really at this point in time, Jean looked into Jimmy's mind, and she saw where the heroes were killed in another reality, on a world that the poisons had conquered. But for Jimmy, he couldn't tell the difference between the poison's memories from another world and his own memories from his home world in the main Marvel universe that he's in now. So leading all the way up to the present moment, Jimmy's mind has been a mess, and it still is now. And it won't be long before that becomes a problem, now that he's gone full poison again. But at first when he joins the fight, it's kind of funny how Andy looks over there like, hey, I know that guy. So Deadpool gives her this quick explanation on who Jimmy is, and because of that, she has questions like, what's he doing here? How'd you find him? And how do you even know all this? And so Deadpool just tells her to focus on the invasion that's happening now, because as it stands, they have zombiotes to kill. So from here, Andy tells Wade that she can use her anti-venom to purge some of the monsters. So Wade's like, go for it. Matter of fact, start with the big guy, referring to Man-Thing. But when Andy goes to purge Man-Thing, she burns at the Man-Thing's touch. And I mean, that's pretty much to be expected, because whoever knows fear at any level, they're gonna burn at the Man-Thing's touch. And Andy's no different. But as it turns out, this worked. But through the course of this fight between the monsters and the zombiotes who are invading, the number of monsters expressing their anger at Deadpool, it's grown exponentially. So even after they manage to get things under control, as soon as they're done, Frank and the others, they want Deadpool to leave. But Deadpool just tells them, like, not so fast, we're not done, because there's more people we need to save topside. So for a moment here, Frank is just like, well, the surface dwellers, they don't care about us, so we don't care about them. But Deadpool just lets him and the others know, like, yeah, of course the surface dwellers fear you, but they need you now. And besides, once the zombiotes take over the topside world, they're just gonna come back after you're home next. And really, it just makes for this moment where all the monsters come together and they head topside to take the fight to the zombiotes, while saving whatever people they can. And when they do, there are humans who notice this and express their appreciation to the monsters who came out of the shadows to help them out. And it kind of makes for a very heartwarming moment. But that doesn't last too long, because before you know it, Jimmy starts to get overwhelmed, which from there takes him into a Berserker rage. So given the fact that he already wasn't that stable, this then causes him to just fly off the rails. And it's not even the case where the zombiotes are able to bite through his armor and possess him or anything like that. This is all him, his poison and his mixed up memories. Cause it's here where we see him say, the zombiotes consume the dead, use them as hosts, and they want me, because they know what I am. They know I am already dead. Which again just goes back to the memories that Jimmy has that are a combination of his own and the memories that have come from his poison. Because Jimmy truly believes that he's already died. And I mean, really at this point, he's been gone for so long that I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel was like, you know what? He was dead, just like Cletus Cassidy. But we'll have to wait and see if that happens. So for the time being, I'm just going off what's already established. But because Jimmy starts losing it here with his memories getting mixed up again, this causes him to attack the monsters in addition to the zombiotes, which right away has Andy like, yo, we need to do something about him. Hey, get your mans. Because if Jimmy's willing to go from fighting the zombiotes to attacking the monsters, who's to say he won't go after civilians next? So the first thing Deadpool could think of is to get Princess to go after him. So right away, Princess hops to it. But unfortunately, Princess just isn't enough to keep up with Berserker raged poison Jimmy. So immediately Deadpool rushes in for what appears to be a moment where he gets to hear Princess's last few words, but in a twist of events, Princess bonds to Deadpool, and together they become Princess Deadpool. And I mean, they went through a whole list of names, like Deadpool by Night, Capwolf, which is already taken, but after going through the options, they land on Princess Deadpool, which feels like the right choice. It's kind of low-hanging fruit if you ask me. But yeah, so far within the Venom War Deadpool tie-ins, it just seems like Cullen Bunn was like, you know what, we're just gonna have a whole lot of action and fan service. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes in a Deadpool story, that's all you need. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below, where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.